Hello everyone, and welcome to the Plant to Platter kitchen. We are actually out on my backyard terrace, and we're looking at what I call my Grand Canyon view. It's like you're walking out, hiking out of the Grand Canyon. I did that many years ago, and this is just what it reminds me of, and it's right in my backyard. So welcome. What I've decided to do today, and it seems a little crazy standing out here now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to do a little baking. And it's in the upper 80s today in Sedona, and why I decided to bake, I'm not quite sure. But I wanted to share a simple dessert recipe because a lot of times you get invited to picnics or barbecues, and a lot of times there are desserts there that are full of lots of calories and lots of sugar and lots of dairy. And so I'm going to share with you a very simple, tried and true Garbanzo bean blondie recipe. So let's get into my kitchen and get started. So I have placed all the ingredients on my countertop that you will need for this recipe. You will need some oatmeal, a can of garbanzo beans, some dates, and these can be Deglet Noor dates or Medjool dates. However, if you use Deglet Noor, you're going to need slightly more since Medjool dates are bigger and plumper. You will also need some peanut butter, and I would recommend when you are purchasing peanut butter that you look at the back of the ingredients and make sure all you're getting are nuts. No added palm oil or salt or sugar, it's just not necessary. So when I am not making my own from fresh peanuts, then I will purchase a store-bought brand, and I really like the Santa Cruz brand. I love the taste of it. We will also need some vanilla extract, maple syrup, and you can also swap out and use date syrup if you'd like, but I really like maple syrup for the buttery, extra buttery note that it adds to this recipe. Cinnamon, we'll need baking soda, baking powder, salt, and then kind of the added extras, but I think they're quite necessary, are the vegan chocolate chips and the walnuts. Walnuts for some extra crunch and nuttiness to the garbanzo bean blondies, as well as giving you some of that healthy omega-3 healthy fat that we all need for our brains and our making our body function great. And I love the Enjoy Life vegan chocolate chip brand in dark chocolate because I am a dark chocolate kind of gal. So here we go with these ingredients. I have placed all the tools you'll need on my countertop. Look, it is hardly anything. This is such a super quick, easy recipe. I think you're going to really love the simplicity. So you will need a food processor and an 8x8 pan with parchment paper, and I prefer to use what I call reusable parchment paper, just so I'm not constantly throwing away and the expense of parchment paper, so I love my reusable parchment paper. You'll need a strainer, a can opener for opening that can of garbanzo beans and draining it. You'll need a bowl to soak your dates to soften them up slightly before adding them to the dough. And then just a set of measuring cups and measuring spoons and a spatula to make sure your dough is getting incorporated in the food processor, as well as scooping it out into the pan. And if you have a preference for smaller nuts, then definitely get a cutting board and a knife. But really, I don't think you need to use it. You can actually just at the end, when you pulse the walnuts and chocolate chips in, it does a fine job. But if you really like your nuts to be very finely chopped, then you might want to roughly chop them before adding them to the dough. And then, of course, the plant to platter recipe. So in my last video, I kind of highlighted my older daughter, Megan, and how she went to ASU, and she actually is now attending Creighton University, getting her doctorate in physical therapy. Well, I had to point out and give note to my younger daughter, Corinne, because the Garbanzo bean blondie came into our family because of Corinne. She discovered it, she adapted it from, I think it's called Veggie Inspired website. And changed it a little bit to meet the needs of our family. And so it's all because of Corinne that we now do Garbanzo bean blondies all the time. And so I had to give her a shout out, and she's actually a nutrition major at Cal Poly, and so I'm really proud because she's going to be a registered dietitian soon. Woohoo! Go Mustangs! So I needed to also point out something in regards to the peanut butter, because we're using peanut butter, but you can use any sort of nut butter that you want to in this recipe. I really like peanut butter, the tried and true yummy peanut. But you know how there's that oil at the top, and like with tahini, if you use tahini, which we're not in this recipe, but I use tahini a lot in all sorts of sauces and spreads and that kind of thing. And it has that yucky oil, and you're sitting there stirring it, and then it gets all over the place onto your counter, and you have to wipe off the outside. Well, I learned a trick the other day. If you just turn it over and put it, before you've opened it, like this, down on a table, and just set it like this for about, I think, 15 minutes or so. If it's at room temperature and has not been refrigerated, then the oil gets incorporated kind of naturally, and then it's just a quick stir, and then you don't have this oily mess going everywhere. And it seemed like everyone around me knew about this trick and I didn't, so either I'm the only one left on the planet that doesn't know the trick, but I figured there's other people out there like yourself maybe that isn't aware of this trick, so I'm sharing it with you today. So try it out. I am showing you all the ingredients that are in the food processor, and from the ingredients that you saw on my countertop, everything is in there with the exception of the vegan chocolate chips and walnuts. I first want to get this well combined, but just, I mean, look, it's super easy. I've dumped everything in there, and you'll notice all that cinnamon. Yes, you need like 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon, because cinnamon is such a natural sweetener in itself, and it just adds a great depth of spicy flavor to these blondies. So don't be cheap on the cinnamon. You gotta use it all. So I'm gonna put the food processor lid on and get this blondie mix whirling. There is the combined dough. I really forgot to count how long it took me to process it to get it to this point, but maybe 15-20 seconds. And it looks quite nice and firm, and that's what you're looking for. I am going to go ahead and add the walnuts and chocolate chips now. Because if you're going to have a little bit of dessert, you can splurge every now and then and enjoy yourself, but this is not something you want to have after every single dinner or lunch or something like that. It's just a special treat for maybe when guests come over, or you're hosting a nice little luncheon with some folks, or having a party or a potluck. These are great to make. They're super easy. So after about 25 seconds, I did just like 1 second pulses, 25 of them, and then at the very end, kind of whirled it for maybe 5 seconds straight. You may have some loose chocolate chips in there, and that's okay, because when you press them down in the pan, you can just mush them into the dough. That's perfectly fine. But everything's ready to go into the pan. As you can see, I took the dough and placed it into a lined 8x8 baking pan. And I was so easily able to get it into every corner, every nook and cranny of the pan, and it doesn't stick to my hands. So it's really easy to press down and get it ready to go into the oven. It's going to bake for about 30 minutes in a 350-degree oven. So here we go. So we did it. We made the Garbanzo bean blondies, and they turned out fabulous. And they smell wonderful. The cinnamon's great. And if you're going to have the blondies, you have to have some milk. And I highly suggest a plant-based milk for obvious reasons. But my personal favorite is unsweetened soy, but you choose whatever you want to go with these wonderful dessert treats here. Just don't eat them all in one sitting. And I hope you have a marvelous day. And I'm going to do likewise. And I will see you next time in the Plant to Platter Kitchen. You go out and have a day full of plant-based joy.